The sun'll come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears away the cobwebs and the sorrow till there's none. When I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick out my chin and grin and say, the sun'll come out tomorrow, so you gotta hang on till tomorrow. Come what may, tomorrow, tomorrow, I'll love ya tomorrow. You're always a day away.
Democrats are set to take control of the U.S. Senate, House, and the White House.
This will go down as one of the most progressive administrations in American history.
God willing, everything is on the table.
You now can pass things without a filibuster threat.
You'll regret this, and you may regret it a lot sooner than you think.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
I didn't know you were going to sing the whole song. I didn't know you were going to do that. Well, welcome to Ruthless, where we sing, we dance, and we entertain.
Unbelievable.
Genuinely a variety program.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Smug, what do we think here, pal?
Wait, that was the take? Rolling with that one? Incredible.
We're going.
All right. I'm just sitting here stunned. I mean, we don't even have to say it's going to be a great show. That's already done. That's been established at this point.
We told
outstanding work, Duncan.
Oh, we told you. Yeah, we told you Tuesday that the variety program would deliver, and that in particular, Duncan on Duncan was being peer pressured into doing Annie tomorrow, and he delivered in spades, folks.
Outstanding.
Look, I'm a team player.
Just
we know this.
Serving the content that people want. You got to love it.
You ask for it, we deliver. I don't even know. I mean, honestly, we should just sign out. That is just
I mean, honestly, everyone's gotten their money's worth. This has been a great episode, folks. No, but we really do have a really good one today.
We do.
What do we have? What's on the docket?
Well, there's this spectacular development that a lot of people have been following as it relates to the stock market, and it has a lot of parallels to the political situation we've had in our country. And we find it particularly interesting and / hilarious here at Ruthless because our resident burn it all down comfortably Smug is now an institutionalist when it comes to investing. And all of a sudden, Duncan and I find ourselves as, you know, the guys who are on the outside looking. We're now the anti-establishment folks. We've got a role reversal.
Institutional investors are the salt of the earth. They're the fabric of our society.
This is what democracy looks like. This is what
right. Yeah.
I mean, it's perfect. These are essentially Antifa, domestic terrorist types.
It feels attacking. So good. It feels so good to see.
Well, I mean, honestly, I feel bad about them. I feel bad for these folks who are going to get just absolutely hosed. It's the little guys who are going to get crushed in this.
So just to level set so everybody knows what we're talking about here, there has been a development in Wall Street and what they call the retail investor, which is basically just normal people out across the country who have all sort of gotten behind in particular, one stock called GameStop. Now, you know GameStop because like basically every strip mall that you grew up around had a GameStop where you bought video games, video game consoles, and all that kind of thing. And there was a bunch of hedge funds that went very short. And we can, Smug, why don't you explain what that means?
I'll briefly just say, for simplicity's sake, it's when you are shorting when you are shorting a stock, you are, you know, the transaction is you are borrowing a share from the broker and instantly selling it, you know, and so you owe a share to the broker. It's essentially a bet that the share price is going to go down. Like, you know,
You're
if I
betting
want to
against-
buy a share of widgets R Us, and it's $10 a share, and I think it's going to go to zero, then I short the stock, and the broker says, okay, you give me 10, you will owe me a share. And so if the stock goes down to $1, then I've made the 9 when I give him back the share at $1. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like in layman's terms, you're betting against the success of a company.
Yeah,
right.
You're betting the share price goes down.
So anyway,
You're betting that the company or the entity is ripe for some sort of challenge, if you will, like a primary challenge.
I see what you're doing.
Amazing.
I see what you're doing. Okay, so now you can see we're just going to start painting a little picture in here so we can see how this develops as a political parallel. But what happened was that there was a bunch of institutions like big hedge funds that had taken a short position in GameStop because they were betting that this is basically an old business model that obviously with COVID has a lot of challenges in terms of foot traffic inside of a retail store. And not to mention the fact that most people are streaming games and things like that. So there's not really a marketplace for a bricks and mortar store. So they short this position. Well, these guys on the internet, on Reddit in particular, take umbrage with this position and had somehow figured out how to organize literally millions of people who are like day trading for GameStop stock. And they've driven the share price up to like as high as $350. It started at like $17. Now, the reason all this stuff is important is because normally normal people don't manipulate markets like this. This is entirely in history. It's entirely a product of Wall Street. And now it has escaped the grips of Wall Street, which I find to be refreshing. Smug finds to be.
I disagree with that characterization completely.
Smug finds to be concerning. Concerning.
Oh, I mean, the thing is like you think about hedge funds. The only people who are allowed to invest are your high net worth individuals, your QIBs. You know, it's essentially just to keep, the average retail investor from getting, over their skis.
Oh, well, you know what? I think
so that's what they do. Is that,
I think we need
protect
we need
our
term
country.
limits. I think we need term limits on these hedge fund managers. I think they have too much power. They've been there too long, and they're really, frankly, screwing up the market.
Duncan, do you think that it's possible that they've just been focused on feathering their own nests?
I think the real swamp isn't the Potomac in Washington. I think it's right there on the Hudson River.
I'll tell you what.
Wall Street's the real swamp. And we gotta go for them.
Hedge fund managers are like I said before, they're salt of the earth.
Oh yeah,
they provide so much to society. Everyone's talking about the Robinhood app, but the Robinhood Foundation does so much charitable works, for schools, for folks in need, and that's what hedge fund managers do. They help deploy capital, they keep markets efficient,
and they vote for Joe Biden.
Well.
They vote for Joe Biden, and these people didn't give a shit.
I'll tell you what. Any fund managers who voted for Biden, I hope they do catch it on this. I hope they're getting squeezed like hell. I'll say that.
Right, because they didn't give a shit about the W-2 or K-1 filers running small businesses across America for the last year that have been shut down. Right, and I tweeted it out.
I think they did, by and large.
Oh, they didn't care. They didn't care at all.
Overflowing amounts of compassion.
I tweeted out.
They do all they can to keep businesses going, deploying capital across the country.
I'd like someone to come on Ruthless podcast and explain why this GameStop scheme is more fraudulent than the stock market going up, up, up while Main Street was on lockdown for the last year.
I mean, that makes total sense. It's investors, where they put their money is where they put their money. But there is, here's what I'm saying is with this Reddit situation, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of folks who get in trouble with the law, who get in trouble with the SEC, and the vast majority, of these retail investors who are jumping in. I think it's not going to end happily.
Because only fat cats should be allowed to manipulate the markets. That
Yeah,
why
only the
should
fat
average
cats.
everyday
I disagree with the
American-
characterization of market manipulation in the first place. I think funds provide a vital utility to society.
Yeah, so when Ackerman goes on CNBC and says, I have a short position in this company, it should go to zero.
And
He
that's
put
why
that out of the
you know,
goodness of his heart. You
and
know,
then
he
when
cares about
when Icon goes on and shouts at Ackman for having that and just short squeezes the hell out of him, that's the market at work. You know?
Oh, so they're allowed to have freedom of speech
Absolutely.
and democracy,
Absolutely.
and
Institutional
organize their capital.
Totally.
The regular people of America, they're not allowed to organize their capital.
Yeah, I think you're an SEC registered investment advisor, you know, and you open it only to limited partners who are qualified as high net worth individuals or QIBs. You should absolutely have a voice.
This is the best.
So good.
I love this.
It's so good. This is the Storm the Capitol crew.
I mean, it's to keep folks safe from themselves. That's all it is.
So Smug, just to put a finer point on it, what do you think we should do with all these marauders who are ruining your
I
precious?
mean, I don't
market?
think there's anything we need to do. It's going to take care of itself. You're going to have the SEC that's going to find anyone who acted, you know,
Where are the regulators?
exactly.
Where
I
are
think
the
the regulators are going to
regulators?
handle it, and then there's going to be a lot of folks who lose a lot of money, lose their shirt over this,
You know, it's so
and the
funny.
market will take care of itself.
What's so funny is they're all going to come to Washington and want congressional hearings. And
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the
investigations
next
to protect
step.
the
is, like,
market. And
They're
look,
going to
I
have
think-
all these folks on Robinhood that are going to demand a bailout. It's going to be a mess.
Well, okay, maybe the price of entry there for our friends on Wall Street should be taxing carried interest as regular income.
Never. That makes zero sense.
There's your resident populist, comfortably smug.
Yeah.
I love it. We've gotten more of a kick out of this than most here on the program because of the sharp and drastic role reversal we've all played here. Because Duncan and I are taking a look at these hedge funds, which, shall we say, we don't view favorably by and large. But the fact that like 3 million or so people on Reddit who decided to invest against him and bankrupted a few of these guys, for me, that's got to just keep him on his toes. I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, like, look, I guess I agree with Smug in one sense. Like, this isn't going to end well.
No.
Somebody's going to be left holding.
This will end in tears. Absolutely.
But it is an interesting, I mean, the political parallels to this. I mean, in politics, we've been dealing with the rise of populism and online activism and organization through that online since the early 2010s. And I mean, I remember when I was the chief of staff in Senator McConnell's office, there was these two bills called SOPA and PIPA, and they dealt with online privacy. And they were in the Senate. They were bills that had like 60 plus co-sponsors, right? So they're widely supported pieces of legislation that like the entertainment industry and everybody who basically owned intellectual property was extremely in favor of. Well, the internet companies decided that they were then going to be liable for any sort of distribution of any of this because of this bill. And they organized against it. And I remember like Wikipedia and Google and a whole bunch of different sites online shut their sites down for the day and put instructions to everybody who visited to say, like, write to your congressman or senator and tell them you can't pass this. And it was a game changer overnight in terms of activism on Capitol Hill. The bills died a very violent, immediate death because of the ability of Americans to get organized around, you know, something that they saw as wrong. And by the way, they had absolutely no idea, but they knew that the sites that they relied on for information were telling them that they wouldn't be able to provide the information if these things passed. So that was kind of the beginning to me. And up through the Tea Party, and, you know, we see it in spades today with, you know, all of the like really good activism, and then how it can also be bad when you see things like QAnon and other things develop that become crazier. But this is the first time we've ever seen your fat cat Smug get their toe caught in the door.
I mean, they're going to be fine. That's the thing, is institutional investors are going to be fine. Just the amount of capital that they have relative to how much, you know, folks on Robinhood have in there, which is also, you know, this is an unfounded theory of mine. You know, I have zero basis in any sort of investigation to confirm this, but I just have a feeling there's a circle of folks who didn't have, the best of intents in mind, who are essentially wanted to pump and dump a stock.
Right. Like 10 or 20 folks are doing like a quarter of the volume, and they're masquerading as meme lords, but actually they're just
and then they're
pumping.
getting a bunch of folks who might have, a few $100, and that might not even be any sort of disposable income or anything that they'd be, happy to part with. And they're getting all these folks to jump in with a small amount of money. And those are the folks that are going to get hosed while, that small circle of nefarious actors, who knows? They've probably already walked away, closed their trade.
So we're going to wrap on this for us, but we are going to talk to Johnny DeStefano, who listeners will remember his name because he was the deputy chief of staff for President Trump the first 2 years. Incredibly important actor in the Trump White House. He left, started his own consultancy, but he's also been following this like a laser and participated in it with great success, I might add. But he'll freely admit, he's not an investor. He doesn't know this, but he brings the political intelligence of sort of how all of these things came to be and provides a really interesting perspective that we'll have in our last segment today.
It's a pretty good interview. I was listening to it. It's great. Good stuff.
Johnny's a good
guy.
What
I want to talk about? Why I'm enraged today. One of the many reasons, but why I'm very enraged is, so there was a tweet that the mayor of DC, Muriel Bowser, put out, which says, DC, let go of your boards. If you know a business that still has boards up, please remind them to pull them down. Hashtag DC is open.
Unbelievable.
Really? All that it says, DC is open now that the right person is president. Like the way that everything has become politicized by Dems in terms of, this is just such a prime example.
So just to give you a perfect example. So post-election November, my office is right downtown. I haven't been there since March of last year, right? I can do most of everything I need to do at home. All my folks that I deal with over the internet and everything else. I haven't actually gone to my office in large part because I can't get there.
I actually walked past it. I have a place here which was designated like the green zone of the red zone. I walked past it. There was like a Humvee and National Guard in front of it.
I can't get there. The parking garage that I am supposed to park in is a block away from 16th Street, where the epicenter of all of the protests over the summer were congregated. And for most of the summer, you couldn't get in. They closed the street. Like I couldn't actually get to my office if I wanted to, right? And it wasn't because of COVID. It wasn't because of all the various economic situations we've got going on. It's because there was organized protests sponsored in large part, I would say, maybe not officially, but certainly sanctioned by the mayor Bowser's office, that resulted in huge destruction across the city, where they were breaking windows and burning down buildings and doing all kinds of crazy stuff that, like, I'm sure that wasn't the intent of the organizers, but that's really what happened to the middle of the city. So now it's incredible for me to hear, okay, now it's time to take down the boards.
And that's really the thing, what was it all for? Like a wonderful user on Twitter, M. Brassenstein, had this great tweet where he said, glad to see there was meaningful police reform, which let us get to this point. Kudos to all. Like nothing changed except for who was in the White House.
No,
that's what this was about. That's what this was about.
It's truly, it's disheartening. And it's really disheartening to people, particularly civil rights leaders, which I gotta say, there are people who are all summer genuinely invested and genuinely invest their life's work into justice and equality issues, police reforming, all kinds of things. And you listen to people speak so passionately about that. And then you watch it get absolutely hijacked by a bunch of Democrats who put kente cloths on and pretend like they're representing their interests, when in reality, all they're trying to do is get a partisan edge on a president they don't like.
Yeah. After Nancy Pelosi put on that kente cloth, and now that DC's reopened, do you think she said a peep about police reform? Has she said anything? Nope.
They don't care.
They got what they want. They got what they wanted.
It's really, It's really a shame, but you're watching, all the things that we said were going to happen are happening slowly, that all of a sudden COVID no longer exists,
Yeah,
economy
once
is open.
Newsom's like, "Oh yeah, we can reopen." He's when he first announced these shutdowns, he's like, "My decision making is based on the science and the experts, and the metric I'm looking at is what percentage of our ICU beds are filled." Well, the percentage has gone up since the shutdown, and he still said, "Oh well, we're reopened now."
Oh, God. Well, I'll tell you the one thing that's not open. The one thing that every parent in America knows that's not open
Yeah,
is our schools.
yeah.
And I don't know of anything that enrages the average, everyday, moderate more than the idea that teachers' unions are somehow finding a new reason at this point in time to not teach their children.
And see, what's infuriating is not just that, because you always expect teachers unions to be like, we just want money, we don't want to do anything. That's their MO. But not only are the teachers unions being like, no, we can't go back to work, it's unsafe. The CDC said, okay, schools can reopen, that's okay, that'll be fine. And you had the Biden administration who ran saying, oh, we believe in science, we trust the experts, we worship at the altar of science. And then it was Klain, right, who was like, oh, the union said it's unsafe, right. So it's unsafe.
Let's get moderate Jeff to play that sound from last night.
President Biden has sent a plan to Congress that will make sure that a majority of our schools could be open within 100 days. We need Congress to pass that plan so we can do the kinds of things you need to do so that the schools can be safe, so the teachers can be safe, so the students can be safe. Sadly, it costs money, Aaron.
So Klain is just saying, nope, not yet, right? You've got the CDC that says there's actually a very low transmission rate in schools and it's perfectly safe to send your kids back. You've got Fauci who, look, we've been very critical of Fauci, but to his credit, since last September, he's like, I don't think we have a problem with schools. I don't think that's a transmission issue. I think we should probably open those up. Even Fauci says that, right?
I mean, didn't Biden say directly when they asked what he would do about COVID, he said, I would listen to Fauci. I wouldn't fire Fauci. I would listen to Fauci. Well, there you are, folks.
This is what happens when one bullshit narrative takes precedent over another. When they say for a year we're going to listen to the science, as if that's the answer to everything, as if there isn't a cost benefit analysis to every decision we make in government. And we're always going to listen to the science. In reality, here's a core Democratic constituency that doesn't give a shit about your kids. And it's more important that your kids get depression and fall behind in school and suicide rates go up than these people be made a tiny bit less comfortable than they've been for the last year.
And it's not even just that they're the amount of attention that has gone into this. What really enraged me about what Klain said was, no, like we're not ready yet. They need the infrastructure, and that comes in our COVID relief bill, that $1.9 trillion boondoggle that they're trying to sell to Congress currently. That includes things like minimum wage and all kinds of like extraneous non-COVID related stuff. And what he's doing is trying to get people, okay, so now we can open the schools. We have to spend another $2 trillion on Democratic priorities. So now we can open the schools. But like all of that is just playing the American people for absolute dumbasses, because 3 weeks ago, President Trump signed into law a bill that provided $83 billion for schools, to retrofit schools, to have air purifiers, to make sure there were smaller class sizes. That comes on top of another $23 billion that they still haven't spent from last April. There's been over $100 billion spent on schools, getting them ready to open for our children. And they haven't gone back because the teachers union say, well, we got to be vaccinated. Okay. All right. Sounds good. We got a vaccine. Now you're first in line. We vaccinated all you. Now they're saying, no, all the kids need to be vaccinated. Well, guess what? The CDC doesn't even want your damn kids to be vaccinated. They said it's unsafe for people under 6. So where is the barrier? Like, at what point do we need to eliminate disease on Earth?
This was all about power. This was all about power. They tried to masquerade it as, oh, we're trusting the science. The CDC's given them the clear and go ahead. But no, this is about unions. This is about Dems exercising their power, and they just wanted control. This is just one example. What they wanted is They want, how do they describe it? What's the phrasing? They want to like rebuild better or whatever,
build
which
back
means
better.
build back better, which means Green New Deal. And you're already seeing it, folks. Biden said, fracking's donezo, not happening on federal land. They're already putting their agenda in as fast as possible of everything they wanted to accomplish. It's all these little policy things they had sitting on the shelf, and they just waited for the right time. They're like, never let a crisis go to waste. Well, you're seeing it in action.
Completely.
I gotta tell you guys a little story here, because it's just like there's another side of this too, beyond just the teachers. I was walking through my neighborhood the other day, and I saw these two kids. They must have been like 7 or 8 years old, maybe a little bit older, 9 or 10, playing up high in this tree in our neighborhood. And I was just walking the dog and walked by them, and they both had masks on in the tree outside playing.
I know where this is going.
And I mean, the odds that one of them is going to die from COVID is what, like 1 in 10,000 or something for kids. I mean, kids don't really die from this respiratory disease, thank God. It's more dangerous for them to be playing in the tree than to be not wearing a mask.
And
right?
And I might add, probably much more dangerous to be playing in the tree with a mask on.
Yeah, you'd think so. But here's the thing. There's another side of this beyond just the teachers. When we're talking about the school issue, we also have parents who will say, because their brains have been rotted from watching MSNBC and CNN for the last year, that they're so scared of their shadow that now they're scared their kid is going to go to school and transmit the virus back to them. And if that is a real and sincere fear of yours, keep your kid home.
Yeah.
But the entire rest of the parents and the teachers and the students shouldn't have to all stay home and live on Zoom because you're going to be scared forever. If you want your kid to get dumber, if you want your kid to get depressed, that's on you. But the rest of America has to start living again.
Yeah, suicide rates are up. I mean, this is having a very, very negative impact on kids. And these teachers' unions are just brushing that aside because you see where their priorities are. It's the union first. It's not the students. There's a great article here. It was out of Chicago, where you had a Chicago teachers union leader facing criticism for vacationing in the Caribbean while at the same time claiming it's unsafe for teachers to return to the classroom. There you go.
Unbelievable.
I mean, that's perfect. It's perfect. If you want to go through the moon, though, Smug, we have an example in Northern Virginia, which friends of ours have actually dealt directly with this, a public high school, and they had this school board meeting. And the school board is entirely, as most public school districts are, entirely controlled by the teachers union, right? And they're allowing parents to express frustrations, but they keep them like at 2-minute increments. They're like, you can talk for 2 minutes. And this guy goes up there and starts speaking passionately about his special needs daughter and how she's falling further behind because they just can't provide her the resources that the school does to try to keep her up with other kids. And he's explaining this, and sort of like midway through, they gavel down on him. Sorry.
Are you serious?
Sorry. Like drop the gavel on him. No. And you're like, well, what in the hell can be more important with your time than listening to this parent's situation with his special needs kid? And we found out, you know what they went to? Their next proposal was, what do you rename the school? What name do we put on the school? Because the founding father that we have on the name of this school is no longer politically comfortable for our students.
That's what we're doing during a pandemic.
That's what oh man, that is shameful.
If you want to go through the fucking moon, think about that, right? Who are these people? Can you imagine waking up at any point in your day and your job is to take care of kids? And what you're thinking is, boy, I got to change the name. The kids haven't been in the school for 9 months, but what I think is really important is that I express my political opinion about our founding fathers today. That's what my view is.
I hear that story, and we need to go full Ronald Reagan. He did it to the air traffic controllers that didn't want to show up. Just
hell yeah.
Any teachers union member, tell the teacher you don't want to show up, fired, gone,
Dunzo. Union disbanded.
Yeah, gone. You don't want to do your job that's been cleared by the scientists who you worship. Yes, you're gone.
And I'll tell you who the real loser is here. I mean, everybody sort of like points and laughs, and here are these upper middle class people who are, and have to work, and now they're saddled with their kids and they don't know what to do because they're, obviously not used to that. That's not who hurts here. Your upper middle class parent for the last 9 months has been figuring out a way to get their kid educated, whether it's tutors or private school or what have you. Like, those kids ultimately are going to be fine. The kids without resources, the single parent kids, the kids in underprivileged homes, those kids are to the extent that we have barriers in society for people to excel, that just got so much higher. They are the ones that are suffering here. And ostensibly, those are the people that the Democratic Party professes to be taking care of. Well, here's version A1A, folks. Biden administration, they don't give a shit about you.
The first opportunity they had to do the right thing that would benefit the kids who are like you described, the people who should be the primary focus of these teachers, and they sided with the teachers unions.
Well, I'm just glad, Smug, you're finally taking the side of the kids. After last week you wanted to pepper spray them.
That's different.
Well, that's
I think kids should get education, but not shot in the restaurants. Two very distinct.
They should learn to be quiet, right? That's not part of the education.
Yeah.
Well, listen, we got to get to Johnny because it's a really interesting interview. I hope you find this, you all find this economic component of this, because you're seeing a lot of it on the news, as interesting as we do. There are a ton of political parallels, but Johnny's lived both. And I think he'll provide some good insight for us.
Yeah, let's get into it.
All right. We're going to welcome to the program a very good friend, Johnny DeStefano. Known you for years in a political context. You were most recently the deputy chief of staff in the Trump White House, where you did a lot of good work, and you got out of there with your own consultancy, and I'm sure doing a lot of good work. But why you're on the program today is because you, amongst the many people I know who have been watching this GameStop situation with the stock market over the last 3 days, have been paying an incredible amount of attention to that. And one of the parallels that we've been drawing is between what we've seen in politics with the rise of populism, activism online, and whether that's translated into finance now for the first time in a long time. So, Johnny, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Josh. This is, I thought maybe someday I'd be lucky enough to be a guest. This is the last thing I thought that I would get to talk about. So this is fun. I appreciate it.
But as you said, this is perfect because you are not an investor. You're not an investment banker. You're somebody who watches this stuff, and basically that's the similarity of everything that we're watching who's making moves, right?
It's exactly right. I mean, in some respects, I am the perfect person to have on to talk about this because I have no expertise in the subject at all. I don't really know what I'm talking about. So just my disclaimer is considered nothing that comes out of my mouth investment advice. So we're clear about that.
We are very clear.
We are clear.
This is not investment advice.
My office was across from Gary Cohn and Larry Kudlow's in the West Wing, which is probably the closest we can get if you need to justify why you have me on here.
Proximity of office space is as good as any in this.
It probably is. So what's happening is, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you've got retail investors, right, quote unquote, who are individuals who are trading their own money, generally online, have identified some stocks that big institutional investors have massive short bets on. And, and GameStop became sort of the poster child for this. It's a brick and mortar dinosaur that wasn't going anywhere, which I think at one point, maybe still, and this is where I get into sort of, I have enough knowledge to be dangerous, but I mean, I think its shares were 140% short, right? And that can happen because, at least as I understand it, you can borrow a share to be shorted more than once at a time, right? So last November, GameStop gets a new investor, the former CEO of Chewy, the online. I mean, I get a cat. I've got Chewy boxes showing up in my house every week, right? The former CEO of the online pet store. He takes an activist position. He gets a few board seats. So there's some optimism, right, in the direction of the company. It's not this. I mean, it still is this brick and mortar retailer, but what's he going to do with it? What's it going to turn into?
Yeah, it's not Radio Shack, in other words.
Right. So folks saw an opportunity, and these are the little guys, right? They saw an opportunity. They did their due diligence. They realized just how short a few of these big boys were, and they took advantage. And I mean, today, I mean, this is where we talked about. I mean, anybody with $100 and a phone can participate in this. You can buy fractions of shares. You can buy options. You can buy crypto, right? So, I mean, you pointed this out. I was watching CNBC, Quintilla, maybe somebody actually called out your tweet. I mean, this is it's the equitization of the stock market, and the little guys just like aren't taking shit anymore.
Yeah,
they're
totally
prepared. These aren't idiots. I mean, they just haven't had the opportunity. And so, I bet a lot of them remember 2008 and how it affected them or their parents or their friends or whatever. And I mean, it's just nuts.
And it's a confluence of, because this is all organized online primarily through Reddit at this point, what I've explained it to is it's a confluence of people having fun for a purpose.
Right.
And it's not enough this is not like an investment club.
No, and it's not, I mean, it's not organized, right? I mean, it's not it's funny. You see these folks on CNBC, these regulators, these other people talking about how dangerous this is. I mean, what people don't realize is these people are standing up for hedge funds when they're doing this, right? I mean, that's the craziest part, is just how unprepared Wall Street seemed to be for this. I mean, the app that most people are using to do this is called Robinhood, for fuck's sake.
I told you they were coming.
It's like the Dennis Leary joke about poor Lou Gehrig, who died of Lou Gehrig's disease. I did not see that coming. I mean, that's what's just so crazy. It's like, this is, you see this in politics, like we've talked about, right? Like, this was going to happen. And now all of a sudden, the media narrative on this entire thing is turned against the little guy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's because the media is entirely organized around the institutions, right? It's just same in politics as it is now in finance, where you see everybody takes their expertise from these sort of institutional investors, the hedge funds, the long-term players, and has absolutely no sense about where the grassroots are. And in this case, where a whole bunch of investors are that didn't exist to these people at all before a week ago.
Right. And it's not like we don't exist in this world. It's not like we saw it coming, but to you, it's kind of like deja vu for people who have spent the last 10 years in politics, right? I mean, for a Republican, you think about it, I mean, it's sort of it's a single best and single worst part of, being a Republican, especially a professional Republican, right?
Right.
I mean, you've got the free market making a lot of people who wouldn't have had a chance a lot of money.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, at the same time, the next thing those people aren't thinking about doing is plowing money into Republican candidates to make sure they continue to have that opportunity.
Right.
I mean,
it's an amorphous movement, and I remember, because you were there, you were working for Speaker Boehner at the time. In the 2010 sort of Tea Party movement, when everything began in politics to start to organize itself and hyperdrive online. And what was the biggest change were that your speech as a voter went from having to be filtered through polls and media and, your elected representatives and everything else, to giving you that voice directly. And then the ability to organize with like-minded people across many platforms across the country. And all of a sudden you were shouting in a way that you'd been silent and didn't really realize you were silent for generations.
Right. And that's what these folks are doing.
That's it.
And I'd say they probably have a lot more in common with the Tea Party, right, than they do with, the other side politically. And I mean, that's how I would say a lot of the folks that are attracted to our party right now, how they mobilize, right? How they show their interest. It's by engaging, like you said, on a Facebook group, or, through, trying to get the big guy, investing. Whereas, I'm not saying there aren't Democrats on Reddit or Robinhood, but by and large, the Democrats' Robinhood is ag blue, right? Their investment is in a political candidate, and the return is
government.
I don't know, like the joy of seeing a 34-year-old documentarian in the Senate raise their taxes. Is that what that's it, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
This is just another that with people who are speaking a different way.
Completely.
It's and a lot of these guys on Reddit, you read this stuff. I mean, they're taking these returns that they're making. This is great, right? One of the things they're doing is they pledge a percentage of what they make to charity. And a lot of these guys have decided to go and buy, go to GameStop and buy like PlayStation 5s and donate them to children's hospitals and stuff.
It's so great.
So they're, having their cake and eating it too. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's to see these people getting, demonized on CNBC and other places we've seen it before.
We've seen it before.
It does not end well for the big guy.
No, it sure doesn't. The one lesson that I've had in politics, and I know you share this, is that you can get to a point where you put so much emphasis on anti-expertise, if that's even a word, where you're basically trying to emphasize the fact that anybody who does this for a living is a dumb shit. And we're just going to overwhelm them, which is it from a pure democratic perspective, like, God bless them. That's America. You can do what you want, right? Everybody's your voice.
Right.
But ultimately, what we saw transpire in politics is a lot of really dumb shit, right? You remember like cut, cap, and balance, and like all these things that came out of that movement in politics that were totally unworkable and ultimately would have been awful for the American people, but were shorthanded and therefore reality to this larger movement. I wonder if in finance we get to a point where we're saying everybody who's in finance, they don't know what they're talking about, and we lose, some basic principles and understanding for how the market can rat fuck you at the same time.
Well, what's interesting is that, if you're on Reddit, you're on Wall Street Bets, and you're looking at this, the reason this came into be is, I would almost argue, because of the irrational exuberance of the institution, right? Because they were so short on these shares and people understood what that meant, fundamentally. Now, it's not like the fundamentals are taking this thing to $300 something a share, because it's obviously the company's not worth what it's being traded for right now. But what I do see is a lot of really solid due diligence and rationale behind what everybody thinks they're doing, right? This isn't, there's a lot of, hold the man accountable and screw the shorts and all that, but it's not founded in some reason, right? They picked GameStop for a reason. They're not just driving up a random stock, right? These are not guys who could quarter, right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, because, now they're moving AMC, which is, of course, the theater that everybody's had in their hometowns, and it's amidst a pandemic, which, if we're being honest, that's not great for revenue. Is this just basically trying to grab every defunct or near defunct company and run up their price?
No, it's simultaneously more well thought out and less organized than that.
Yeah.
Right. This is a move. These are folks who are looking for opportunities and sharing what they have found in those opportunities with other folks, and other folks on Reddit, other places, agreeing with that and placing a bet, right? Essentially, right?
So is this the new
normal? It's not, they're not taking a dollar stock and saying, let's drive that dollar stock up to $250 because we can buy 1,000 shares and make $250,000. These are primarily right now, at least what they've done. They've looked at other things that they think to be undervalued, but primarily right now, I think it's sort of like the money. This is the biggest inefficiency, I think, that people, retail investors, see in the market. That is companies that are way, are too short, that institutions have too many bets against, that are too short, that, they see some upside in. And so that's what they're betting against.
Yeah. Well, it's all fascinating, Johnny. And thank you for providing your perspective. Next time you come on here, we're going to talk more politics, but just because you've been following this so closely, I figure we got to have somebody who at least brings a layman's vernacular to some pretty complicated stuff.
Well, we could talk tomorrow after I've lost all of my money.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We don't know how this is going to end, right?
No, we don't. So don't. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Is you see this. You really do see this. People are trying to be responsible about this. Don't trade money you don't have, that you're not willing to lose. You see that there are shit posters and all sorts of problems, right, in terms of people who are trying to spam Reddit, but by and large, the majority of folks are trying to act responsibly, and it's unfair what's happening.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mr. DeStefano, it's great to see you. Thank you for coming on the program.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
So that's
Outstanding.
interesting. Yeah.
Great interview.
It's interesting. And he's an interesting guy. And, who knows? We ultimately have no idea where this ends. Smug's probably right. Then it ends in tears for multiple parties. But it has been fascinating new development to watch. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be keeping my eyes peeled on that situation. And everyone out there, you should, be sure to tune in next time. Keep your ears peeled, if that's a thing, to the show, because this remains the best variety entertainment program.
It is a variety program. In
America.
In fact, we got some feedback on last week's program from old Ben Domenech, who was a target last week.
Yeah, and he's a great sport. He agreed to come on the show.
Gracious, which we appreciate. One thing I wanted to clarify, because my Twitter thread got a lot of engagement. I wholeheartedly disagree with what Ben wrote, but you never trump people who RT'd me. I actually do hate you. I dislike Ben's opinion, but at least he's loyal to something.
I feel like that all the time, Duncan. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'll say something that's critical of Trump or whatever, and then I'll get a whole bunch of journo RTs, and I'm like, no.
Not you. No,
yeah.
Not you.
Right. I'm not never Trump. I'm not never Trump. I'm not like always MAGA Trump. I'm just reality.
Yeah.
There you go, Duncan.
Which is something that we need, which is why you tune in to the Ruthless Variety program, where, by the way, we sing, we dance, and we entertain.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's another great episode in the can. So let's wrap this one up. Until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll catch you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.